Sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now, after enduring the worst 2 years of his NFL career, quarterback Russell Wilson is seeking a mulligan as he is joining the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Wilson joins the Steelers after being released by the Denver Broncos. And of course, we know that things were not pretty in Denver for him. Now, Wilson joins the Steelers on a 1 year deal for $1.2 million, which is the veteran minimum in the NFL. The Broncos are on the hook to pay nearly $38 million to Wilson for the upcoming season. Now, I have talked about Wilson going to Denver and why I felt and I still feel why things did not work out for him there. But this is now an opportunity for him to start over and resurrect his career. It basically is going to be feast or famine for him in Pittsburgh, in my opinion. Now, you look at this Steelers team, they are very talented on both sides of the football, but they've been missing that element at quarterback since the retirement of Ben Roethlisberger a couple of years ago. Now, former Atlanta Falcons head coach Arthur Smith is now the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh. Will he be able to get the most out of Wilson? That's going to be the $1 million question. I look at it like this. You look at Wilson, he had career lows in 2022 playing under Nathaniel Hackett in Denver. He didn't play bad, okay, last year for Denver. Didn't play great either, all right? But it's one of those, like I've talked about it before. He was not a Sean Payton guy. And, that's one of those where the head coach went out. And clearly, Payton didn't believe in Wilson if he was, willing to release him and eat $85 million of dead cap money over the next couple of years. I think going to Pittsburgh for Russell Wilson, what he's going to have to approach this like, he's got to be a rookie again. And I say this because when you go back to when Russell Wilson, first came into the NFL as a third round pick out of Wisconsin, going to the Seattle Seahawks. Russell Wilson was not asked to go out there and win games for the Seahawks. He was simply asked to go out there and not lose games for Seattle. Why? They ran the ball effectively with Marshawn Lynch. You had a phenomenal defense, and of course, that Legion of Boom secondary. Now, granted, Pittsburgh's defense is structured a little bit different. You got some great veterans on that side of the ball, the likes of Cam Haywood, TJ Watt, and of course, Minka Fitzpatrick. And then you look at the talent that Pittsburgh has on the offensive side of the ball with running backs Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, and then some young wide receivers in George Pickens and Deontay Johnson. Now, I will say this, okay? You look at Pittsburgh's offense last year, they were 25th in the NFL in total yards per game. And the Denver offense that Russell Wilson was navigating was 26. So it's not like, you're getting a guy a la, Peyton Manning when he first left the Colts to join the Denver Broncos. No, but I think Russell Wilson needs to go out there and try to fit into the system that the Pittsburgh Steelers are running. And on top of that, it's going to be up to Arthur Smith to see what Russell Wilson's strengths are and magnify those while neutralizing his weaknesses. Now, this time around, don't get me wrong, I know that it was a trade for Russell Wilson in going to Denver from Seattle, but nonetheless, he and the team had to be on the same page, meaning he and the Seahawks as far as the trade and who could work out draft compensation. This time around, Russell Wilson was a free agent. He got to pick where he wanted to go. He got to pick what was the best opportunity for him. Talked with the New York Giants, talked with the Pittsburgh Steelers, met more extensively with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and he feels like this is an option for him. Now, I will say this about Russell Wilson going to Pittsburgh. It's going to be extremely important for him to be one of the guys. You've heard stories. Russell Wilson really wasn't a guy in Seattle. He really wasn't one of the guys in Denver. You heard a lot of the reports there. Pittsburgh is a different element. Pittsburgh is a different city. And I think, for Russell Wilson, He's got to go there and be one of the guys. He's got to go there and win over this locker room, and that's going to be very, very important going forward. But to me, I think this is a move that Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers simply had to go out there and make. There's been speculation about Tomlin in recent years. Is he going to retire? Were the Pittsburgh Steelers going to move on from him? And I mean, the Pittsburgh Steelers have not fired a head coach in more than 50 years. Chuck Noll retired. Bill Cowher retired. A lot of people thought Bill Cowher was just going to take a break and come back. Bill Cowher, when he walked away and got that TV job with CBS, he has not looked back. But you look at Mike Tomlin, never had a losing record as the head coach of the Steelers. And you just look at last year, he was 10-7, got this team to the playoffs with a subpar offense at best. And I say subpar because they had so many issues at the quarterback position. Bringing in a guy, okay, like Russell Wilson, hopefully, if your Pittsburgh can provide you with some stability at that position. And I think on top of that, this is a win-win for the Steelers. Why? Because they don't have to pay Russell Wilson. The Denver Broncos are on the hook for a hefty chunk of change for the upcoming season as far as paying Russell Wilson. So, you went out there at the clearance table, if you will, if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers and you found a quarterback. And like I said, you're hopeful that he can give you some stability going forward this season. The AFC North has been and will continue to be a very competitive division. We saw 3 out of the 4 teams make the postseason last year, and of course, the only one that didn't were the Cincinnati Bengals. And of course, their playoff hopes were dashed when Joe Burrow was lost midseason with the wrist injury. But nonetheless, if you're Pittsburgh, you got to say, hey, we made the playoffs last year and we had so many issues on offense. What can happen now if we can get some stability on that side of the ball to go along with our defense? And I mean, again, you look at this division, you look at Cleveland with the moves that they're making. They just went out there and picked up Jerry Judy from the Denver Broncos. And of course, Sean Payton's just having his house cleaning sale, if you will, as he wants to bring his guys in and wants to, put his stamp on that roster. You've got the Baltimore Ravens. I know that they just lost their defensive coordinator, Mike McDonald, who is now the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. But nonetheless, Baltimore, Lamar Jackson and company, and John Harbaugh are going to once again be competitive. And then, of course, the Cincinnati Bengals are hopeful to have a healthy Joe Burrow here for 2024. And then there's the Pittsburgh Steelers. And again, I can't harp on this enough. Pittsburgh won 10 games last year with an offense that was putrid at best at times. And again, there's talent there, okay, on that side of the football, but there were questions and issues at the quarterback position. And if you're Pittsburgh, hopefully Russell Wilson can, solve some of those. So I think the Pittsburgh Steelers, they have what it takes to be a playoff team. And I'm going to put them in the mix, to contend for the Super Bowl. And I'm saying it from the standpoint like this. If Russell Wilson can go out there and be one of the guys, and if the Pittsburgh Steelers and Russell Wilson can find a happy medium, and he goes out there and fits into the system, and then on top of that, you're probably going to get a hungry Russell Wilson because he's got something to prove. Because there are people out there that are going to say, you know what, Russell Wilson is finished. And Russell Wilson, for me, at this point of his career, he's at the crossroads. Why? Because another bad season, and people are going to clearly say he was finished and he was a product of the system in Seattle. Now, if he goes out there and proves the people wrong, it's just going to be a blip on the radar as far as, his 2 years with the Broncos. Cal One, what's going on, my man? Yeah, we're talking a little black and gold right here to see how Russell Wilson fits into the equation for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And speaking of quarterbacks in Pittsburgh, what's going to be the future for Kenny Pickett there? Because you look at a guy in Pickett, he was a first round pick of the Steelers in 2022. And a lot of people said, well, you know what? the Steelers should not have taken him. And it was one of those where, hey, Pittsburgh needed a quarterback. Kenny Pickett was the best quarterback available in the draft at the time. And, it's one of those where it was nearly 40 years after the fact. Pittsburgh uh, always wonders what could have been had they have not passed on Dan Marino, a local Pitt guy, back in 1983. It was almost 40 years to the date when they drafted Kenny Pickett. But nonetheless, I think the book is still out on Kenny Pickett. It's one of those where he has 2 seasons under his belt with the Steelers. 14-10 as a starter. The numbers are not pretty. 13 touchdowns and 13 interceptions. But I'll tell you like this: Russell Wilson is not going to Pittsburgh to be a backup. Russell Wilson is going to be the starting quarterback because he knows this is his last opportunity to be a starting quarterback in the National Football League. But nonetheless, if you're Russell Wilson, you were able to land on your feet. You found a team and an organization that you're comfortable with. You found a team and an organization that wanted you. And this is something that I really couldn't say the first time around when he went to the Denver Broncos. Now, I will say this: I'm not going to sit up there and hold Russell Wilson blameless for how things went in Denver, because there were things that he could have done better as well. But like I said, he's at that fork in the road. This is a make or break year for Russell Wilson. And if he can't get it done in Pittsburgh, he's never going to get it done in the NFL again. So let's see how things work out going forward for Russell Wilson with the Steelers. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you haven't already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now, you can check it out. Drop a line to be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So, once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful day.